Trenbolone acetate. So starting off with the description, it was originally given to cows and to cattle, and essentially farmers gave it to cattle in order to make the cattle much bigger so that they could be more profitable. And the bodybuilders saw the cattle getting much bigger, and they wanted to become much bigger, so they got the big brains idea of taking themselves in order to get bigger, and they were quite successful. So Trenbolone acetate is used in the professional bodybuilding scene, and it's seen by many in higher regards as sort of the golden standard of anabolic steroids, and it's also one of the most known steroids alongside typical things like testosterone. An interesting thing about Trenbolone acetate is that it is not approved for human use, and so all Trenbolone that humans get is made in underground and illegal labs. And so also because of this, there is no human studies, and so all the effects are pretty much anecdotal and not very much science-based. It is a 19-nortestosterone derivative. It is an anabolic androgenic steroid, and the ergogenic claims, since once again it's not approved for human use, it doesn't actually have any ergogenic claims. However, the reason people use it is to put on muscle mass, get stronger, and get the dry lean. So to understand how Trenbolone works, we must understand how steroids work. Cells have androgen receptors. Androgen receptors are essentially the mediators of androgenic hormones, and androgenic hormones are hormones that promote male characteristics, so things that give you strength, things that make you like more hairy, a deeper voice, that sort of thing. So cells have androgen receptors which receive signals from androgenic hormones, and so when exogenous androgenic hormones are deployed, they bind to the androgen receptors and get the cells to build muscle, as well as some other things, whatever side effects that might be, depending on whatever androgenic hormone is deployed. Important thing to notice is that all anabolic steroids work the same in the sense that it's androgenic hormones binding to androgen receptors, although some androgenic hormones are more potent than others. And so steroids are chosen based on their efficacy and their side effects, and so essentially you want the strongest steroids with the least amount of side effects. And anecdotally, it's believed that Trenbolone is simply the most effective at building muscle and adding strength, which is why it's chosen by so many, and the reason that's sort of seen as the dark side of drugs is because it also has some pretty nasty side effects. So for efficacy, once again, there are 0 clinical trials done with Trenbolone, or even 19-nortestosterone, which is what Trenbolone acetate is derived from. So we can't really measure this in terms of studies. However, anecdotally, it is incredibly effective. We can see this with Big Ramy, whose steroid cycle was released, and he's the former open bodybuilding Mr. Olympia, and he used 500 milligrams per day of Trenbolone acetate. Open class bodybuilding is pretty much where you're trying to become as absolutely massive as possible, and this guy was using the absolute heck out of Trenbolone acetate. And the vast majority of influential people in the weightlifting community agree that Trenbolone is sort of the pinnacle of muscle gaining anabolic steroids. So for anecdotes, I actually have this meme right here. You might think it's funny because it is, but I feel like it does a really good job of showing sort of how people in the weightlifting community see Trenbolone. So most people have the whey protein, and they're staying natural, not doing anything scary, taking creatine, taking some protein powder, and then the dark side is seen as Trenbolone acetate. It's sort of like when you want to get the most amount of muscle, the most amount of side effects, when you want to go all in. Trenbolone acetate is the dark side. There's also these 2 videos. The first one is by Greg Doucette. Greg Doucette is an IBB pro bodybuilder. He's been competing in bodybuilding and all sorts.
Why would people take it? It's so strong and people are so addicted to looking their best that people will basically risk anything to have their dream body.
And the second video is Larry Wheels. He's one of the strongest people in the whole world. He competed in bodybuilding, powerlifting, and strongman.
It's just that one, it's just Tren that just makes life living hell. It just makes everything gets to me on Tren. So I haven't used it in a while.
And so it's sort of that drug that you think of when you think of anabolic steroids that will get you jacked like a house. So prudent recommendations. First thing is less is more. As you can see by this picture, Trenbolone acetate is still sold legally for cattle. It's still used for that purpose. And in this box right here, we can see that one implant containing 200 milligrams of Trenbolone acetate is administered to each cow. Cows weigh like 400 pounds. And on average, those 200-pound bodybuilders are taking quite a bit more than 200 milligrams of Trenbolone acetate. Big Ramy, who's about 250, maybe 300 pounds, was taking 500 milligrams a day, whereas a 400-pound cow is taking 200 milligrams of Trenbolone a day. And so humans are taking significantly more than these massive animals. More prudent recommendations: get blood work done regularly, and there's a very high chance that you're not smart enough to be able to analyze your own blood work perfectly. So it's a very good idea to work with specialists to get a more objective view on things, and also be aware of potential side effects, and these are very likely and very strong anecdotally. And there's really all sorts of stuff that come from all sorts of steroids, like impacts on cholesterol and blood pressure, suppression of natural testosterone production, gynecomastia, which is sort of the development of breast tissue in men, acne, baldness, all sorts of mental effects. Anecdotally, this is the steroid that people can sort of become psychotic on. Virilization, which is sort of the masculinization features of the steroids. So that's like a deeper voice, breath becomes smaller, and body hair can increase. And also insomnia, which can also lead to a decreased immune system, and all sorts of more worse side effects. And another prudent recommendation is do not use it long term, because the side effects of Trenbolone acetate are so strong, it's not a drug that can be used long term unless you want to die an early death. And these are the references.